Hello, my name is Edgar Hagenbichler. I'm a general practitioner from Austria. Throughout my career, I have primarily worked as an occupational physician, a psychotherapist, and a consultant for medical data quality, serving both the Ministry of Health and the Downstream Fund for private hospitals. In 2022, due to excessive and sometimes illegal coronavirus measures, over 30 of us ran as candidates for the Medical Association, the legal representative of doctors' interests. We secured 6 out of 90 mandates in the federal capital of Vienna and 4 mandates in the federal state of Lower Austria. In Vienna alone, 425 doctors voted for us. I'd like to share some of my findings regarding the current scientific narrative. At the start of the so-called COVID pandemic, I trusted the accounts of health officials such as the Medical Association, the Ministry of Health, and the WHO. However, I soon realized that the official data was incomplete and the rare, more detailed publications contradicted the claims about the deadly and extremely dangerous pandemic. After reviewing studies by Austrian researchers like Professor Andreas Sönnichsen, Professor Martin Haditsch, and Professor Schubert, as well as international research by Professor Sucharit Bhakdi, Professor Ioannidis, and others, I concluded that RFK Kennedy's statement in his 2022 address to the Austrian resistance, describing the pandemic as a global coup d'etat, deserves closer scrutiny. He may well be right. You can find the video of Kennedy's statement on my blog at my homepage at hagenbichler.at. One of my first key realizations came in January 2021, when Austria's official broadcaster reported that out of 9,500 COVID-positive nursing hospital staff, not a single one had died in 2020, despite no vaccination being available at the time. Of course, there was much more scientific evidence even at that early stage. Yet the measures continued to escalate, leading me to believe this could indeed be the global coup d'etat described not only by Kennedy, but also by Jakob Nordengaard in his book of the same name. Today, every nation with a military has an NBC, a nuclear, biological, chemical defense unit. The armed forces undoubtedly knew COVID posed no real threat, no worse than a typical flu-like illness. Yet they did not intervene, which would have been their duty in a democracy. This suggests they, too, were complicit in this global coup d'etat. Sasha Latipova has detailed much of this in her COVID dossier on Substack. The dossier compiles evidence supporting the following claim. COVID was not a public health event, though it was presented as such to the world. It was a global operation, coordinated through public-private intelligence and military alliances, invoking laws designed for CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear weapons attacks. Latipova concludes that the massive harm caused by COVID injections and other government pandemic control measures was entirely intentional. She also highlights the shocking reality that military and intelligence agencies, not public health officials, were in charge of COVID responses worldwide, with coordination occurring through military alliances like NATO. Jonas Tögel, author of Cognitive Warfare, describes the psychological techniques used to prepare populations for war, including those directed against their own citizens. But why globally? Why did the US, the EU, Russia, China, and others participate in this global coup d'etat if they are geopolitical rivals? And why did only a few nations like Belarus, Tanzania, and Sweden resist the mainstream COVID narrative? This is an excellent question, and the answers remain speculative. One explanation is that leaders worldwide exploited the artificially created crisis to expand their power. NATO states already eyeing conflict with Russia used the pandemic to psychologically condition their populations for war. Another possibility is that Western oligarchs, particularly the owners of major funds like BlackRock, Vanguard, and Soros Fund, had infiltrated media, NGOs, and governments to such an extent that they controlled nearly all Western nations' responses. Russia, already engaged in the Ukraine conflict since 2014, sought to profit from the crisis, e.g. through its Sputnik vaccine. When NATO expanded and promised Ukrainian membership, Russia invaded. NATO believed it could escalate the conflict while keeping public opinion under control, and succeeded. But why China? China backed Biden's presidency because Trump had labeled China as the primary adversary, whereas Biden focused on Russia as enemy number one. Thus, China cooperated in the global coup, profiting from mask and PPE, from personal protective equipment sales, while supporting a US administration it saw as less hostile than Trump's. China has not forgotten its humiliation in the opium wars. Meanwhile, Belarus, under longtime President Lukashenko, resisted Western COVID policies, leading to his ostracization. Tanzania's President Magufuli fiercely opposed international COVID measures. His death raised suspicions. Sweden, guided by Anders Tegnell, a health expert of integrity, avoided unnecessary lockdowns. So what are my conclusions? I'm optimistic that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is on the right path by appointing credible experts to key positions, such as his NIH and CDC Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices selections. Europe must follow this example with Kennedy's support. Thank you.